Welcome to a special episode of Gary Talks. Now, normally, if you want to get my views on Major League Baseball, you have to check out Ballpark Nation. It's a podcast that Jim Christopher hosts, and I'm a frequent guest on there discussing all sorts of subjects. But since today is the beginning of the Major League Baseball season, I thought I would spend this episode talking about my favorite team, the St. Louis Cardinals. Normally, the start of the baseball season is one of the big red letter days for me in the year. I have it circled on the calendar, I can't wait to see it. I actually start having trouble sleeping the week before the season starts. But this year, that's not the case. This year, I'm finding it very hard to be excited about baseball and the St. Louis Cardinals. But first, let's go back a little bit. I grew up in the St. Louis area, so I'm a die-hard Cardinals fan. Some of my first memories were of the 1982 World Championship Cardinals that beat the Brewers, who were an American League team back then. I religiously followed the team through the 80s, even though they lost the World Series to the Royals, lost the World Series to the Twins. I never gave up on them. But then something happened, late 80s, early 90s, and the team just started to suck, and I have to admit, for a little bit there in the early 90s, I became a Braves fan. I followed the Braves more than the Cardinals, and I just couldn't be bothered to watch the Cardinal games as it seemed like the Cardinals just couldn't be bothered to try. Then the team was sold to a new ownership group, and they brought in Tony La Russa, and the Cardinals started this reign that carried for years. They were one of the most winning teams in baseball. It seemed like they were always in the playoffs, in the World Series. They were close, chasing. Things were great, especially once Pujols came in, early 2000s. And I haven't given up on them since. And I was rewarded in 2006 and 2011, which to me is the greatest World Series of all time, with Game 6 being the greatest baseball game I've ever seen. But something's happened in the past, 6 or 7 years. It seemed like the team went from wanting to win the World Series to wanting to make the playoffs. Take a gamble, see what happens, maybe they'll do it. And the problem with that is that now almost every damn team gets in the playoffs. It's actually easier to pick which teams won't make it this year. The Royals. So when every single team that's a 500 team makes the playoffs, just making the playoffs can't be what you shoot for anymore. Last year, the Cardinals were horrible. Their first losing season in years, and they were 20 games under 500. It wasn't a fun season to watch. Even it being Waino's last season, it just was a chore to sit through. But Cardinal fans kept saying, you know what, in the offseason, the team knows, they see the problems, they're going to fix the problems, they're going to right the ship, and things are going to be great. Guess what? I don't think they did. First of all, we really needed to upgrade our pitching, and we brought in a couple older pitchers, Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson, which, when they were first brought in, I'm like, that's good. That's a good 4 and 5 starter. That'll be okay. But we need a solid number 1 and a solid number 2. They bring in Sonny Gray, who I think is probably a number 2 starter, but he could be number 1. But they needed to bring in a Blake Snell, a Jordan Montgomery, just someone else. And then they didn't. They refused to upgrade the pitching staff anymore. And then guess what? Sonny Gray's injured. He can't even start on opening day. Now, maybe he'll come back. Maybe this will all be great. But I don't know. It's already a first scary thing of the season. Second scary thing. All the other injuries. Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman, both guys that would be playing center field are injured. Then Dylan Carlson slides into center field, and then he gets injured. Luckily, that means Victor Scott II is going to get a chance to start. I had a whole diatribe planned out here about how the only exciting player in spring training was going to get sent down to the minors instead of starting. But through injuries, he will at least be the starting center fielder. Let's see what he can do. I'm hoping he can bring a lot. I do have hope. I'm hoping that Jordan Walker is going to nail like 30 home runs. Nolan Gorman, I hope he's going to hit 40 home runs. I do have hope that these guys are going to deliver, that Goldschmidt is going to come back and be great, that Arenado will have a bounce-back season. But when the team is counting on every player to have a bounce-back season, it's scary. One thing we had going for us was we thought, you know what? Ollie Marmol's job is on the line. If he doesn't turn this team around and win, he's gone. Then maybe we'll get Yachty as manager. Who knows? But then they extended him. Ownership basically said, it's okay, we know you're going to do a great job. And here's 2 more years. Now, yeah, they can extend him and then fire him still and pay him off or whatever, but it's ridiculous. It might be a good sign to the team, but it's not a good sign to the fans. And I think these guys need to start remembering who are the people that buy the tickets. And this is why I have to say to the Cardinal fans, yeah, we're all going to go to opening day. People are going to sell at the stadium. If the team doesn't start off good, stop going to games. Stop buying things. The only way that they are going to make a change is if we all speak with our pocketbooks. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe when I do one of these around the All-Star game, I'll be like, I was so ridiculous, I was so dumb. But much like the upcoming Fall Guy movie, I can be hopeful, but I'm going to bet it's not going to turn out the way that I hope it does. The Cardinals really need to start off hot this year, but they have a super hard schedule, and they start with the Dodgers. I read one article that said, well, it's a good thing this Ohtani stuff is happening because it's going to give the Cardinals a chance. How? It's not like it's going to change anything. The Cardinals are outmatched. The Dodgers are an all-star team. And the Cardinals, they're like a minor league team compared to the Dodgers. Now, do I think the Dodgers are going to run roughshod over everyone? No, I hope not. But I don't think the Cardinals are even in the same league as the Dodgers. So you can't say, well, because Ohtani stuff is being a distraction, the Cardinals are going to come in and win. Now, maybe they will. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. But I don't think I am. There are those good things, though. We have a really good possibility for a strong offense, which we might need if the pitching is suspect again. And we have a really good bullpen, but we need it to be managed correctly. Last year, a big excuse was the starting pitchers couldn't go very deep into games, so the bullpen got burned out. Well, hopefully, at least we have in some innings eaters, so the starting pitchers can go deeper into games, and the bullpen will hopefully be strong. We just need our manager to know what he's doing. And so far, I don't think that's the case. So what's a plus for this year? Well, Cardinals play in the National League Central, a horrible division. So probably all 5 teams will hover around 500, and maybe it'll be an exciting race for the playoffs, so we can see who can lose in the first round. Knowing the way things are going, the Cubs will win the division. The Cards might get a wild card, but then the Cubs will immediately eliminate the Cardinals. And then that'll be the end of this season. Honestly, and I hate to say this as a fan, I would rather the Cardinals lose and finish 30 games under 500 than to make the playoffs and lose in a wild card game again. Because the ownership will say, made the playoffs, that was a winning year for us. Things need to change. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. So that's enough doom and gloom. Next week, we'll talk about WrestleMania. That's right, next weekend is WrestleMania. It's going to be a great one, and I'm going to go over my top 10 WrestleManias of all time. Those of you that like my movies and TV stuff, in 2 weeks I'll be back doing more normal TV stuff as I'll go over my top 10 sitcoms of the 90s. But next week, it's WrestleMania. And remember, if you want to get more of my baseball views, be sure and check out Ballpark Nation. See you later.